Miguel Lopez de Legazpi had found the Philippines a land of little separate kingdoms. To a large extent, this helped in the conquest and colonization of what would otherwise have been much more difficult to subdue as one united force. But before Legazpi had died, the datus who lived and those who died had come to realize that a foreign power was placing them under one alien government. Except for the Muslims, the work of Christianization and unification rule has successfully started. Never did they know the new government, with its virtues and vices, provided the springboard that launched the identity and spirit of one Filipino nation. On November 21, 1564, the Fifth Spanish expedition sailed from Mexico aboard 4 ships under the command of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi were the 5 Augustinian friars and 380 men carrying King Philip's instruction to sail to the Philippines and diligently work with the natives and treating them well. The combined forces of King's Trust, the tactful Legazpi, Friar Andres de Cortayeta, Chief Navigator Martin de Coiti, and Captain Juan Salcedo. This expedition landed to Cebu on February 13, 1565. Philippines then was made up of many little kingdoms with chieftains who were either friendly or hostile to each other, but who recognized each other's independence. The reception given the Spaniards varied from kingdom to kingdom. Rajah Tupas was initially hostile. Bohol's chieftain Sikatuna, on the other hand, received them warmly. They signed the Pact of Brotherhood with a blood compact. With this new ally, Legazpi took Cebu by force and established the first Spanish settlement in the region. Here are the 10 most significant events during the Spanish rule. Number 1, the founding of Cebu in 1565. With both Portuguese who navigate in the East Indies shores and the native Cebuanos threatened their security, Cebu was no longer safe for the group, so Legazpi decided to move his forces to Panay Island. Only when reinforcement arrived from Spain did he return to Cebu, now as the new governor and the title of El Adelantado. With the reinforcement, Legazpi was ordered to take full possession of the islands. Upon hearing the news that the Spanish are back, the Tupas-led Cebuanos fought against the opposition and in the end lost the battle. And that was when, arguably, Cebu lost as a whole to Spain. Around May 8, 1565, Rajah Tupas presented himself at the Spanish fort and agreed to formalize a treaty. Sugbu, now known as Cebu, has been organized as a city government, with Miguel Lopez de Legazpi as the new Governor-General, making it the country's oldest city. My insights. According to historian William Henry Scott, the said treaty may have been actually the terms of unconditional surrender. It was some sort of a prototype of the unequal treaties which Western nations were to fasten, meaning under its rule, on Oriental peoples like the natives for the next 300 years. Number 2, the first expedition to Manila, led by Martin de Goiti and Legazpi's 18-year-old grandson, Juan de Salcedo. Again, the Spaniards received by the rulers differently. Tondos Lacandula was friendly, while Raja Sulaiman was firm. Legazpi's men faced native armies equipped with Panday Piras artilleries or large supply of spears, lances, and unbending resistance. After defeating the Muslim ruler Rajah Sulaiman, Salcedo had earlier proceeded to other points, having taken on the work of colonization of the entire island of Luzon except for central Luzon and some regions nearby, for which Martin de Goiti was responsible. The battles fought by the Filipinos from the late 16th century until the revolutionary period should be hailed and recognized, whether they resulted to victory or catastrophe, since what matters most was the unselfish desire of each key players for demanding changes that we, the present generation, still looking and aspiring for. Seriously? Of course, I'm not joking here, and I still want that change. Number 3, the founding of Maynila. The founding of Maynila, or Manila, took place on the 24th of June 1571 and made the administrative center of the Spanish colony in East Indies. Several Roman Catholic religious orders were assigned the responsibility of Christianizing the whole population. A fort in the walled city of Intramuros, a church and houses had been constructed. The country by now was named Las Islas Filipinas after King Philip II of Spain. Why build a city government? The colonizers of the past, and perhaps we can equate that to the leaders of today's generation who wanted to form a republic. In doing so, its governance will be in the hands of the people. We, the people, and not only the elected public officials. Number 4, the death of Miguel Lopez de Legazpi in 1572. Lopez de Legazpi governed the Philippines for a year before dying suddenly of a fatal stroke in Manila on August 20, 1572. He died poor and was laid to rest in San Agustin Church inside the Intramuros. Legazpi won the islands of the Philippines through loyalty and kind words rather than deception and military vehemence, whatever that means. In the Philippines, he is a friendly conquistador to the world. He is an epitome of loyalty, courage, and self-giving. Number 5, the Battle of Manila in 1574. While founding the city of Vigan, Salcedo was called to Manila to help Goiti defend the city against the Chinese pirate Limahong and his fleet of 62 junk ships. It was a double victory for Salcedo. Not only the pirates were driven away, but done so with the help of the previously hostile natives. Lacandula and other chieftains, most of them are on the verge of revolt against the Spaniards, had joined forces with Salcedo in defeating Limahong's army. Unfortunately, Martin de Goiti was slain in that battle by Sioko, Limahong's Japanese lieutenant. Every battle is won or lost before it is even fought. This statement is attributed to Sun Tzu or Sun Tzu in the art of war. What transpired in the Battle of Manila against Limahong was attributed to having a common goal, unity and solidarity, thus add up in winning against a common enemy. Number 6, the Manila Galleon trade in 1574 to 1600. During that period, regular trade was also built between the Spaniards and the Chinese. Precious metal loaded into galleons in Callao, which lead to Acapulco and Manila in the Philippines. Chinese merchants exchanged the silvers for spices, tea, silk, and porcelain, which are then brought back to Acapulco. The silver and Chinese products are then transported to Veracruz, from where convoys leave regularly for Seville, Spain. The Manila Galleon trade lasted for 250 years. It was the longest international trade route of that time. In present time, the galleon trade put up the ground for globalization by bringing about economic and cultural exchange. and integration of financial markets between Asia and the rest of the world. Number 7, the British invasion of Manila from 1762 to 1764. For almost 2 years, from October of 1762 to April 1764, did you know that the Philippines was part of the British Empire? The Battle of Manila was fought during the 7 Years' War between Great Britain and Spain in and around Manila, the capital city of the Philippines, and a Spanish colony at that time, the British won, leading to a 20-month occupation of Manila. In April of 1764, the British left Manila and full Spanish rule to shoot. This is a fun fact that you can share in your next dinner party. What do you think would have happened if the Philippines continued to be a British colony? Well, your guess is as good as mine. Number 8, economical and cultural abuses from 1830 to 1863. Spanish culture and thought had penetrated into Filipino cultures to the extent that the Filipino people began thinking about liberation from Spanish. There was no public education in the Philippines, and even the church controlled the curriculum. The government of Spain developed Filipino agriculture to the point that it was self-sufficient. By royal decree, the friars were required to teach the Spanish language to the native. Okay? But it was not enforced. This suppression of literacy in language of the administration kept the inhabitants in ignorance and in subservience for more than 300 years. I guess it doesn't change much nowadays because there's still a lot of Filipinos in far-flung barrios and even anywhere else in urban areas remain to be illiterate and uneducated either by choice or by fate. You figure it out. Number 9, the Ilustrados from 1880 to 1896. Many sons of the wealthy were sent to Europe to study. Their nationalism and passion to reform blossomed in the liberal atmosphere. One of the most famous at the time was Jose Rizal. Rizal wrote 2 important novels that portrayed the abuses of Spanish rule, and we all know what happened to him as the sun rises on December 3rd, 1896. His death is annually commemorated every December 3rd. This access to higher education and exposures to the liberal trends in Europe crystallized the idea of fighting for independence in the minds of the Ilustrados. I just hope that our generation today doesn't abuse the same access to higher education by putting in their vulnerable minds what only is right. Spain's sovereignty over the Philippines was recognized by the rest of the world and some Filipinos. Within a decade, Legazpi had founded cities that to this day stand echoing the names of events that saw their origins. The king's bidding had been fulfilled when Spain ceded the Philippines to the United States for $20 million. And that will give way to the birth of yet another colonial empire. Our featured presentation, next episode, entitled The American Dream. Again, this is Rene, expressing my deepest thanks to those who appreciates my works, and if you haven't been subscribed to my channel, please do so. You know the rules.